up on the Disturbance. I am so absolutely fired up to give you my Week 3 National Football League power rankings and predictions. And yes, Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers have found their way into my top 5. All of that, and trust me, a whole lot more coming up on the Disturbance today. I'm Dave DeBaugh. Thanks so much for tuning into the Disturbance. If you haven't subscribed to the show yet, please go ahead and subscribe to the show. Send in your comments and hit that like button if you like. Now, it has been an absolutely fantastic couple weeks of football in your National Football League to this point. I have to say, I think one of the biggest surprises of the National Football League season so far is not the 40-plus-year-old quarterbacks and how they performed. Look, we know Tom Brady is 43. We know Drew Brees is allegedly 40. and I have to say, Drew Brees played like a quarterback on his last leg last night on Monday Night Football in beautiful Las Vegas. Now, before we get into my top 10, which we're going to rattle through, I do want to say one thing about the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, the Las Vegas Raiders played here in the Bay Area for a very long time. You all know their history, how they started here and then moved to Los Angeles, and then Al Davis came back and they moved back into Oakland, and then the history about this team trying to find a new home. If you will, the nomads of the National Football League, the team that everybody loves to hate in the National Football League, is literally played, I want to say, about 10 miles away from my home office. That being said, I have to say, there is something so unbelievably right about the Las Vegas Raiders playing in Las Vegas. That new stadium, look, the decision to make that stadium look like a Death Star didn't happen by accident. I'm telling you right now, Darth Vader would be so proud of the new Death Star in Las Vegas. Like the technological marvels of the stadium, you know, the grass that grows outside and then gets shipped inside on an automated tray. But what I really think Darth Vader, the Emperor, and the rest of the people who hang out on the dark side of the fence would really appreciate more is the fact that they actually light a torch before the start of every game. Seriously, how dark side of the force is that of the Las Vegas Raiders? Look, the Raiders know who they are. My only sort of complaint is the same complaint that we've all had over the last 6 months, which is it's tough to watch these games without fans in the stands. All right, so moving on to my coveted top 10 National Football League teams. With that, I'm also going to make predictions along the way. So stay tuned for those. In at number 10 is the New Orleans Saints. Now look, I'm so sick and tired. It's been literally 24 hours since the Saints went marching into Las Vegas and then flew back to New Orleans, losing to the Las Vegas Raiders. They didn't just lose to the Raiders, they actually got beat. They got beat down in the second half of that game by the Las Vegas Raiders. Yes, Drew Brees has trouble in the pocket. But if you haven't been watching the National Football League for the last 36 months, Drew Brees has consistently gotten worse in the pocket. It was about 2 years ago when I really first noticed on a regular basis Drew Brees struggling in the pocket. Now, all the members of the media are all over this. They're talking about he can't throw the deep ball. He can't throw the deep ball. That's not true. Drew Brees can still throw the deep ball. If you look at the incompletions in the game last night, and you look at the other times that he's struggled really over the last 2 to 3 years, it's always been with intermediate passes. Yes, he's great at the dink and dunk, and yes, he's generally successful with intermediate passes, but last night was sort of a prime example. He's not comfortable in the pocket anymore. He's not a tall quarterback, so he can't rely on being able to see multiple wide receivers at any given time. As good as Drew Brees is going from one progression to another, it's gotten harder for him over the last couple years, and that's not going to change this season for the New Orleans Saints. The Saints play their next game at home on Sunday Night Football against the Green Bay Packers. I will reserve my prediction for this a little bit later in this particular broadcast, as the Green Bay Packers have moved into my top 5. Okay, at number 9 is one of those great predictions that I made earlier in the year, which was that the Arizona Cardinals were going to be good. They weren't just going to be good. They were actually going to be good enough to go 9-7 this year. Now, if you looked at their defense last year, you'd think I was crazy for saying that. But some key offseason acquisitions, a strong draft, plus Cliff Kingsbury has the best house of any coach in the National Football League, hands down. Like, it's like a 5-star resort that guy lives in somewhere in the Phoenix metropolitan area. Look, Kyler Murray, you've heard all the great things about him. He's definitely more confident this year. He's got some great weapons. You know how I feel about DeAndre Hopkins being on this team. He is living up to the potential of his draft pick, which is something that doesn't happen for every quarterback in the National Football League, but Kyler is. This is a very strong team. The Tennessee Titans come in at number 8. I said last week that they would crush the Jags. I got that wrong. Yeah, they beat the Jags, but they didn't crush the Jags. And I think that's why I'm actually picking against the Tennessee Titans this weekend, because I believe Kirk Cousins is going to finally see his shadow and come out of hibernation. I know I'm mixing metaphors here, but Kirk Cousins is officially going to come out of hibernation. Statistically speaking, Kirk Cousins is not as bad as he's been playing. They will figure it out in Minnesota, and if they don't, well, then there'll be a complete regime change by the end of the year, and that's the last thing any Viking fan wants to see. They will figure this out, and it will start to happen against the Tennessee Titans. The Titans will lose in what a lot of you will consider an upset. Number 7 on my top 10 list is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look, I've sort of struggled keeping Pittsburgh in this top 10, but I love Mike Tomlin. I love this Steeler team. It's great to see Big Ben back. Nobody makes a slow quarterback look successful in the National Football League like Big Ben. He's sort of like the Joker from the National Basketball Association Denver Nuggets. Super slow, looks slow, but he's still sort of quick enough. And before you know it, he scored 25 points against you. Big Ben, even at this later stage of his career, is one of the smartest quarterbacks in the National Football League. Still one of the strongest quarterbacks in the National Football League. And like an Aaron Rodgers, has a whole bag of tricks. Unbelievably fun to still watch at this stage of the game. That being said, they are at home against the Houston Texans. And I'm picking the Texans to actually go into Pittsburgh, surprisingly, and win this game. Look, the hot seat is beyond hot. It is Phoenix, 125 degrees, and it's only 8 a.m. in the morning hot. That's how hot it's gotten for Bill O'Brien of the Houston Texans. One bad general manager trade after another, and as a head coach, it doesn't matter that he's won like 4 division titles in 6 years. This team is missing DeAndre Hopkins badly, and they haven't found a way to replace him yet. They have to win this week. They will in Pittsburgh. Buffalo, look, might be a little bit overranked at this point, but I've got them at number 6. And it's not because they beat that powerhouse football team led by Adam Gase in week 1, the New York Jets. How does Adam Gase even still have a job? Like, how does Adam Gase, seriously, how does Adam Gase still have a job coaching the New York Football Jets? I said last week that if the Jets lost at home to San Francisco by 30, he'd be out of a gig for sure. Well, he saved his job, and they only lost by 18 to a team that got absolutely decimated by injuries, to a team that was already decimated by injuries before the season even started, as well as some bad moves in the offseason, sort of weakening their depth chart and their roster. That being said, the Buffalo Bills did beat the New York Jets week 1. They did beat Miami last week. It took a lot for them to make that happen. Josh Allen had to put it on his shoulders. Had another great game. They're opening up this offense a lot. They've got the Los Angeles Rams coming to town, and I just don't know that the Buffalo Bills are going to be able to handle what the Rams are going to throw at them. Number 5 is the Green Bay Packers. Look, as a lifelong Minnesota Viking fan, I have developed a strategy for being objective about the Green Bay Packers. And as a fan of the Vikes, you know, I usually throw that out the door the week of a game against the Packers. But when the Vikings aren't playing the Packers, and I sort of sense that the Vikings aren't going anywhere that year, I have no problems rooting for the Packers. I have no problem admiring what this football team can do. If you look at how good of a job, and it's hard for me to say this, Matt LaFleur has done with this team, then you have to sort of sit back and respect it. I think they've lost like 4 games in the 20 plus games that he's coached in the National Football League, and 2 of those were to the 49ers. Look, this Packer team is for real. I did not think that at the start of the season. I was wrong. I was wrong about them, and to some degree, I was wrong about the Las Vegas Raiders as well. But that's a podcast for a different day. That being said, Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers are officially hot. They go into New Orleans to play Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints next on Sunday Night Football. We got Thursday Night Football. We got Sunday Night Football. We got Monday Night Football. There's too many nights of football. So Sunday Night Football game. They go in. And the question is, you know, will Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers find a way to beat the New Orleans Saints? When I look at the Saints defensive line, I immediately begin to reflect on what happened with the Raiders in Las Vegas on Monday night. Derek Carr looked like a Pro Bowler. Derek Carr looked like he was heading to the Hall of Fame. Look, this defensive line, while it's got a couple nice pieces, the defense as a whole for the New Orleans Saints seems to have reverted back to about 4 or 5 years ago. You know, when it was just all Drew Brees and it was just all offense and no defense, and it didn't matter because the Saints were going to outscore you 48-45 every game of the week. That is not the case this year. The Saints offense is good, not as good as it was 4 or 5 years ago, and their defense is nowhere near where it was last year at this point. That being said, I have to be objective. I actually think that Aaron Rodgers, regardless of who the wide receiver is that he's throwing it to, because like Russell Wilson, who's really good at throwing people open, Aaron Rodgers is as well. And Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers will go in to New Orleans and win that game. Number 4 on the big list this week is the Seattle Seahawks. And all I've heard all week is Russell Wilson's playing like a most valuable player. did you see Russell Wilson? How great Russell Wilson looked? I'm like, Russell Wilson's been playing like a most valuable player for the last 24 months. And where have you been? Like, there's nothing new. Like, Russell hasn't done anything new. I'm not seeing anything different out of Russell Wilson that I would have seen, 24 months ago. Same Russell Wilson, a couple different pieces. They seem to be a little bit more comfortable in what they're trying to do with their offense at this point. But let's face it, this Seattle Seahawks team, while I have them ranked number 4, I don't have them winning their own division. That's because I got the Rams winning their own division. And the reason I have the Rams winning their division is the Rams actually have more than one player on defense that I can call out. Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald. I could go down a longer list of that if I had to. The Seattle Seahawks defense at this point is in trouble. They're getting no pressure statistically. If you look at it, they're literally at the bottom of every category on the defensive side of the ball. Like, that won't last for the whole season. I'm not saying that they're going to be the worst defense in the National Football League once they figure things out. But for now, they are full of holes. And that's why I believe that the Dallas Cowboys are going to go into Seattle and beat the Seattle Seahawks. Now, all of you Cowboy haters out there, and God knows I've been one as well. You shouldn't be called America's team if you haven't won a Super Bowl in 25 years. You should immediately lose your title. You can't be called America's team if you don't win, right? That's what it's all about. That being said, Dak Prescott looks really good. Ezekiel Elliott's going to run all over this Seattle Seahawks team. They've got a lot of great weapons. We've covered it on other podcasts. On the wide receiver side of the fence, the Dallas Cowboys are going to win in Seattle. It's going to be a lot easier than you think for them to accomplish that. Okay. Number 3. God, I love the National Football League top 10. All right, number 3 is the Los Angeles Rams. And I have to say, each week, I grow more confident in my pick that the Los Angeles Rams were going to win the NFC West this year. Jared Goff last week threw 3 touchdown passes. 3 touchdown passes did Jared Goff throw. Do you know how many he threw in week 1? 0. This offense hasn't even gotten going yet. They are just beginning their diversification process. Trust me on this. This Rams team is loaded on the offensive side of the ball. They've got a strong offensive line. If they can continue to protect Jared Goff and keep him off his back, then they are going to go far this year in the National Football League. I covered a little bit of the defense earlier. Strong defense. Probably, if you consider all the injuries to the 49ers, now the strongest defense in this division, clearly. And defense really does help you at least progress towards a championship. So the Rams are flying back east again, back-to-back weeks, because the National Football League schedulers this year certainly couldn't figure things out. They sent the 49ers to MetLife to play the Jets last week. Then they made them fly home. Now they're making them fly back to play the Giants this week. The Seahawks had the fun of flying to Philadelphia, and now they have the fun of flying into Buffalo. The Rams are going to win this game. It is going to be a dogfight. This is not going to be a blowout. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a 3-point victory for the Rams at the end of the day. All right, number 2 and number 1. And that's the Baltimore Ravens at number 2 and the Kansas City Chiefs at number 1. First, I want to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs at number 1. And it's less about the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's more about the Los Angeles Chargers. And it's been a while. It's probably been a year or two now since I've seen a really young quarterback that I've thought, okay, this guy has it. You can tell. Like I saw Kyler Murray play a lot last year, and there were times throughout the season that I watched him play, and I said, okay, this guy has something. I think he can figure it out. There were games where I walked away from it saying, okay, Kyler's going to figure this out. It's not going to happen overnight, but he's going to figure it out. He's going to be really good. He's not going to be a bust. He's not Johnny Manziel. He's not Baker Mayfield. When I watched Justin Herbert play, and yeah, I watched Hard Knocks this year and all of that. But when I watched Justin Herbert play, and the way he played, and it wasn't just, the stats that he put up, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, over 300 yards passing. It was how he handled the game. It's how he threw the ball. It's where his eyes were directed. He's a tall quarterback. He's not one of these smaller Kyler Murray style quarterbacks. He plays the game differently. He's what we would call, if you looked it up in a dictionary, prototypical quarterback. That is who Justin Herbert is. He's a prototypical quarterback, way better than Sam Darnold already in the National Football League. Of course, he doesn't have Adam Gase to deal with. So he's already in a better position, but he's still ahead of him after just one game. Looks down the field. He can see, like Tom Brady, more than one route at any given time. That's what makes Tom Brady actually so great over the years. It wasn't just, progressing from one receiver to another. It was being able to see multiple receivers at the same time, something that Drew Brees has really struggled with because of his height. And he's found other ways to adapt and become great. And quarterbacks do that. You use your strengths to become a really good quarterback. Take Ryan Tannehill. I'm not saying Ryan Tannehill is great, but he's not horrific. He does the small things well enough to get himself a really large contract from the Tennessee Titans. Sure, the Titans would rather have Justin Herbert, but they don't. So they've got this guy, Ryan Tannehill, who is serviceable, and he's good enough. Now, Justin Herbert looks like a surefire hit. He has what it takes to play in the National Football League, maybe even more so than a Joe Burrow does. I cannot believe what I'm about to say. And that is, the Los Angeles Chargers have already announced that Tyrod Taylor will be their quarterback this weekend. Now, I was thinking about this I was thinking about this before I started this podcast, and I was like, it's not that I have anything against Tyrod Taylor, and gosh, and I feel bad for Tyrod Taylor because he never seems to get his own team for a long enough time for him to really show us what he can do. He's on that Ryan Fitzpatrick, I'm going to be a journeyman quarterback for my entire career path. That's who he is at this point. And so I feel bad for him. He obviously had a reaction to a shot that he took prior to the game last week, which is why he didn't play. So Herbert came in and did what Tom Brady did to Drew Brees. It was clear to Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots that Tom Brady was the future, and they decided, we know he's young, we know he's going to make some mistakes, but we're not going to go and we're not going to stick with the Pro Bowler that they had in front of him, which was Drew Bledsoe. So I don't understand this. I don't know what kind of promises were made or not made or what's going on. I mean, did the Charger coaching staff not see what the rest of us saw out of Justin Herbert? And plus, on top of it, the Chargers have the benefit of playing essentially a college football team this week when the Carolina Panthers come to town. Let Herbert, give him another start. Let's see what he can do. He's obviously ready. All right. So lastly here, Kansas City, Baltimore. Baltimore's at number 2. Kansas City's at number 1. And they do play each other on Monday Night Football this week. The National Football League is just so fantastic at how they schedule these things. They finally gave a great game to Monday Night Football. So Kansas City at Baltimore. And I've had the Kansas City Chiefs, out of respect, listed number 1 on my list. One of the things I hate is, like, when a new season starts, the team that was at the top of the mountain last year might not be ranked number 1. And I always feel like that's fundamentally wrong until they get knocked off the hill. So I've kept Kansas City at number 1, knowing that they were most likely going to go into this game 2-0 against the 2-0 Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens have very few holes. The Ravens probably, pound for pound, have the best roster in the National Football League. The Kansas City Chiefs are not far behind. So it's going to be a great game on Monday Night Football. I think the Ravens next week, when I do my top 10 list, are going to be number 1, which means they're going to take care of business and take down the Kansas City Chiefs, which is going to be an absolutely fantastic game. I don't know about you, but I can't wait to watch it. All right. So that's it for our big top 10 list of our National Football League Week 3 power rankings and predictions. A bunch of other, interesting things going on. One last thing I want to say about the Atlanta Falcons before we get out of here. And I've been calling for Dan Quinn to be fired. I don't like calling for people to be fired. Like, I don't take joy in ripping on Adam Gase as much as I do. But he should have never been given the New York Jets job. Dan Quinn's a really nice guy. He did a really nice job with the Falcons for a couple years. But in the National Football League, change is needed. And I'll say this, Mike Zimmer, who's the head coach of my Minnesota Vikings, if he doesn't turn things around, change is going to be needed there as well. It's just the nature of the business. Sometimes things have to change in order for a franchise to stay mediocre, fall backwards, or move forward. You never know how it's going to turn out. There's only so many young Sean McVays in the National Football League, and we understand that. But Dan Quinn has run his course, and I respect Arthur Blank for sticking with him for one more year. But after what we witnessed in Dallas with that onside kick, I created a quick podcast last Sunday just to get it in, because I had to say, look, they shouldn't allow Dan Quinn back on the flight to Atlanta. Like, they literally, if your players do not understand that when you're receiving an onside kick, you don't have to wait for the ball to pass 10 yards. You can jump on it at any given time. If they don't understand that at this point, Dan Quinn, you should not be a head coach in the National Football League. Now, look, of course, they've been taught this. let's be fair here. Of course, they've been taught this. The problem is they weren't reminded of it. And that's one of the things that a head coach is ultimately responsible for. All right. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. Once again, I'm Dave DeBaugh. You have been tuned into the always fun Disturbance. This has been our weekly top 3 or top 10 National Football League teams and predictions for the week. Coming out later this week, we've got our Gods of Odds show, which is hosted by myself and Brad Hoyseth. We'll give you the top 10 games worth spending some money on. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Just go ahead and subscribe to the show. For the Disturbance, I am Dave DeBaugh. For more semi-witty sports commentary, hey, do check out our big website at mighty.rip. Look, we know there's a lot of places you can get your sports coverage from. we are sort of giving it a slightly different twist and producing new content on the daily basis, and it's intended to be witty where we can be. All right, thanks so much for tuning in, and have yourself a tremendous rest of your day.
The Disturbance is a production of